Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Hope everyone is having a great day, a great week. I've actually been sick all week, so if my voice sounds a little congested or whatever, sorry about that. Um, but other than that, the weather here has really been a lot more enjoyable this week. It's a little bit warmer. The snow is finally starting to melt, which has been really, really nice. So, yeah, happy Thursday. Hope everyone's been having a great week. I wanted to chat about tonight. I wanted to chat about perfection versus progress, or rather, progress over perfection. I was thinking about this because I think, as I talked about on my last podcast, maybe, or two podcasts ago, um, you know, excuse me, um, I've really been kind of a slug this winter, really taken off from doing a lot of things that I need to do this winter as far as like working out, working the horses, all that stuff. And I've gotten back into it the last couple of weeks. So trying to get the horses back doing something so they can get back into some sort of shape, and some sort of a fitness level that is acceptable. So we will be ready to start barrel racing when the weather warms up a little bit and they start having barrel races. If you haven't tuned in here before, I do competitively barrel race. I use the horses a lot to kind of find excuses and find things to talk about that are good examples that are applicable to life. So that's that. But anyway, so I was like, I gotta start getting the horses back to doing something, right? And the ground has been frozen. It's been pretty impossible to get them to doing anything. But the farm that I board at does have it's a very large farm. It's kind of like, I don't really know what you would consider, like everybody there is self-care. So like the farm owner has this big farm, but then they lease out stalls to people who want them, and everybody kind of does their own thing and takes care of their own horses and stuff like that. So it's kind of that setup. So it's a big farm. Even though I only have two horses, I have access to this big farm. The one thing this farm doesn't have, it has a lot of great things, but it doesn't have an indoor arena. So riding in the winter is near impossible if the ground is frozen. If you don't know anything about horses, you can't really work them in unsafe footing. I mean, yeah, you can saddle them up and you can walk them around in the snow, but if you want to really give them a good workout, you need safe footing. And it's been very icy here since our last snowstorm, so everything's kind of just a blanket of ice. So it's not safe to be doing any real work like that. Additionally, if it's super cold, I don't like to make my horses exert a lot of physical, energy and exertion anyway, because it can be pretty bad for their lungs if they're really doing a heavy cardiopulmonary workout and it's below freezing, if not in the teens, single digits. So footing, temperature, all the stuff, it's been a barrier. But the temperature has warmed up a little bit over the last couple weeks. And it's like, okay, what can I get them doing that just gets them moving? I need to just trot them, like nothing else. We just need to like get back into it. And one of the barns on the property right now is actually empty. It's the largest barn. It's empty. And it has like an oval alleyway. So you have four stalls with, an alleyway in between two stalls, and then an alleyway on the other side between two stalls. And the alleyway in between the stalls is dirt. So it's basically like a big dirt oval path. And Like the footing's not super great, but enough to do a trot, enough to just get out there and do something. So I was like, all right, let me utilize this. And I cleared it with the farm and everything. And so I've been taking the horses down there and taking them to this barn and excuse me, I said I was congested. And trying to walk and trot them and just get them back moving in this alleyway. Now, this is where I really wish I had a way to share a video or a picture with you guys, because I can't a picture's worth 1,000 words. Imagine, so this is a small alleyway in between a set of stalls with, the building has a roof on it, walls that go all the way up. And the alleyway is long because the barn is pretty long. So like you're looking down this long alleyway and it feels very narrow. It feels very claustrophobic. There's not a lot of lights in there. So there's like shadows all over the place. So like one place looks lit, the next place looks dark. So like there's all these shadows kind of playing tricks on you. And it's honestly a little intimidating for the horses to go to this space and like feel comfortable and not be kind of looking around and not be kind of spooky. And it's a really tight area and Ceilings are low as far as being on horseback. The ceilings feel low. And like I said, not a lot of natural light. So the horses aren't really completely at ease in there. And that's okay because, part of the benefit of doing this is getting them, more comfortable with being places that they are not that comfortable with. And again, if you don't ride horses or train horses, I'll just fill you in a little bit that, teaching a horse, we call it desensitization a lot. If a horse is nervous or scared or uneasy, part of the training for that is to get that horse used to pushing outside of his comfort zone. So I use trail riding a lot for that. I'll take the horses out on the trail. It can be kind of an unnerving experience for them because everything is unfamiliar. Everything looks different. There's like birds and animals, sometimes even deer jumping around in the woods. And horses they're flight animals by nature. Like when we talk on this podcast about fight or flight response, horses are flight animals by nature. So their natural, response, safety response, if they're feeling uncomfortable, if they're feeling unsafe, if that part of the brain kicks in that tells them like, you need to get out of here and go back to something that is familiar to you and comfortable to you because we know that is safe for you. Horses' natural response is to flee, to try to run away. And if they can't flee or run away, then that's when they can sometimes, go into fight mode and become aggressive, misbehave, rear up, buck riders off, like that sort of thing. So for the purpose of what I want to talk about tonight, I want to focus on my experience riding my younger horse down there. If you follow this podcast and listen to it, I've had some issues with my younger horse. We had some setbacks a few years ago. We kind of had to go back to basics, fill in the gaps, really work on some things. And one of the holes I've found in our foundation and our relationship is that this horse is actually an incredibly anxious horse. And that, when I learned that and really appreciated it for what it was, it took me by surprise, but then it also made a lot of the pieces of the puzzle click as to why we were struggling with what we were struggling with. Some animals, just like people, they wear their heart on their sleeve. You know exactly how they're feeling. You know exactly what emotions they're processing. Like you can see people when they're anxious or upset or fearful. But then other animals, just like other people, they internalize all that stuff. And this horse is one that internalized it. And I didn't realize what was going on in her head um, until it got to such a point that everything kind of fell apart, and I was forced to go back all the way to the beginning and go and build all the way back up to find out where those holes truly were. And so now I know a lot more about this animal, and I know that she is a very anxious horse. She's very anxious, she's very fearful. She wants to do the right thing, but she gets nervous a lot, and she doesn't have a lot of self-confidence yet. She doesn't have a lot of self-assurance yet. She doesn't have, I don't want to say she doesn't trust me, because I think she absolutely does trust me, but I think she's still trying to figure out, what does that trust relationship mean? Like how blindly do I just follow this person that I trust? Like, when do I pause to question it? When do I pause to push back? So I think she's still kind of figuring that out, even though she does trust me and we have a good relationship. This is something we're still very much working on, and that's why we took the approach we did this past season with how we approached getting back into racing and everything. The goal is slow and steady. We're not going to push it too hard. We're going to build our confidence. We're going to build our communication. We're going to build our trust. Let's not blow your brain up. And that's kind of the way I think of it. Like, let's not blow your brain up. And riding her the other day in this alleyway, she was obviously nervous, obviously like, where are we? Why are we here? What are these surroundings? It feels weird. It smells weird. The lights look weird. There's shadows everywhere. Like, I don't get what's going on. And she was anxious, and she still listened to me. She still, she was still very good. As for as much emotion as she was having, she was still very good, which is a good sign for where we are in our training process. But there were a couple of times where we would get to a point, like I said, this alleyway was very long, and the way the lights are is hard to, I wish I had a picture to show you, but there's no natural light, and the way the lights shine, there's just all these pockets of shadows where you really can't see. So we'd get to a couple of these places, and she would not want to go forward. And I kind of keep asking her, go forward, go forward, go forward. And then I can tell, because now I know her so well, I can tell when her mind is on the edge, right? Like she starts pawing. She kind of gets her front end really low to the ground. I can just, with what she does with her head and her face, and like with what I'm feeling under me, I know she's at a point where, like, she's like, hey, I'm kind of at a breaking point. Like, I can't do this. I can't take much more of this. Like, I'm about to lose it. I'm about to like lose my mind. And, for some horses and for some periods and seasons of training, when a horse gets to a place where they don't want to move forward, like, what you need to do is kind of force them to move forward, because they need to learn that they need to listen to you no matter what. But I didn't take that approach, even though that's kind of the normal equestrian thing. I did not take that approach with her in this moment. When I felt her kind of on the verge of becoming unhinged, instead of forcing or applying more pressure for her to continue to move forward in the direction I was asking, I instead elected to back off. When I felt her on the verge of becoming unhinged, I said, okay, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing that you're about to lose your mind, and we're gonna turn around. We're gonna walk back the other way. We're gonna work on some other stuff. And we did that like several times. She ended up walking the entire alleyway and walking the entire barn, and we got a good workout, but there were a lot of periods where, like I said, it was just like she mentally couldn't handle anymore. And instead of pushing her forward, I just said, okay, that's fine. Like, let's turn around. Let's do something else. Let's remove the pressure. Let's go do something easier. Let's go back and walk in the same and trot the same area that you already did and is safe. And that just got me thinking a lot about kind of our own mental health, our own way we exist with the world around us, the people around us, the things around us, our minds, our bodies. We can only take so much. And I've said it on here before. I a lot of times I will kind of, in examples, kind of make the brain like it's a muscle, because that kind of makes a lot of sense to me, even though it's not like a muscle. But it has its breaking points, and physically we have our breaking points, but mentally we have our breaking points as well. If you had never ran a day in your life, like you have never been on a treadmill, never jogged around the street, never ran a 5K, if you had never practiced running or conditioned yourself for running a day in your life, and then you go out tomorrow and you try to run a marathon, I promise you, your body is going to completely break down at some point. Like you're going to break. You can't push yourself past a point that you were conditioned to deal with. And just like physically that's true for our bodies, it is also true for our mind and our mental health. And if you are dealing with things and coping with things and mentally having pressure put on yourself, there is a breaking point, and there is a threshold that if you cross, you will come unhinged. And that's kind of the point of working on mental health and getting mentally stronger, and making sure your mental meter, as I call it, is in the green, and all that stuff. Like, that's the point of all that stuff, because it's the same thing as conditioning your body to run the marathon. Like, 1 week you work on running 2 miles. The next week you work on running 5 miles. The next week you work on running more miles. And you spend a lot of months training your body to be conditioned to deal with the physical toll that comes with running a marathon. But that takes a lot of conditioning, it takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of practice. And the same is true, in my opinion, when I think about it, for mental health. You have to practice mental health. You have to work on mental health. You have to prioritize being mentally healthy in order to be able to cope with things, and in order to be able to up the ante, so to speak, on what you mentally can deal with before you become completely unhinged. And, I think about my horse, going back to this example, we're working, like, that's something that we're working on with her. I'm trying to get her mind where it needs to be. And part of that is conditioning her, pushing her a little bit. Like, hey, let's push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. Let's push you a little bit, let's apply a little bit of pressure. Let's make you do something that's hard today and unfamiliar. Like, let's try to build your self-confidence. But if you push too hard, if you apply too much pressure too soon, it's going to backfire, because she is going to come completely unhinged and lose complete control. And that's going to do nothing other than further shatter self-confidence and further shatter, the trust that we're trying to build and everything that we're trying to work on. Everything in horse training is based on pressure release. Like, that's how you train horses. That's the crux of everything. You teach them to be okay with pressure and to respond to pressure and to give to pressure. But then you teach them that the reward for that is the release of that pressure. And that's how you establish the building blocks. You apply a little more pressure every single time you work at something. And, eventually, for example, like the first day of training, maybe you just want the horse to take one step. Like, you nudge your calves into their sides so they feel a little bit of pressure on their rib cage, and kind of just urge them with your energy to take a step forward, and they take one step forward, and that's it. And you stop asking, because they felt the pressure and they did they gave you the response to the pressure. So now you release the pressure. And maybe the next day, now you ask for 2 steps before you release the pressure. The day after that, now you ask for 3 steps before you release the pressure. And of course, I'm oversimplifying horse training for the point of this example, but that is how it is done. You apply pressure and teach them to respond appropriately to that pressure, and then the pressure is removed. And over time, you actually can get a big response to kind of a larger amount of pressure. But on that same example, if I was getting on a horse for the very first time, this horse has never had a rider on his back, and I do that same thing. I put a little pressure on the rib cage, kind of ask with my energy for them to move forward, and expect them to go walking 30 steps. That's unrealistic. Like, they haven't built up and learned how to do that yet. And on a horse like that, who's just learning, if I apply that pressure nonstop for that amount of time, they're not understanding what I'm asking. It's just going to freak them out. They're going to come unhinged. Like, you're never getting 30 steps out of that horse, because if they do what you ask and you don't remove that pressure, they're going to become confused. They're going to become upset. They're going to become scared, and it's going to backfire on you. So it has to be a slow build, a slow process. And you have to realize when to back off. Like, you have to realize when to stop applying the pressure. Like, when is it enough for today? Like, when have we met the learning curve for today? And, we need to stop now. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll do more tomorrow. And what I think about when I talk about this is progress over perfection. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. I say that all the time, but it is so true. Don't let it, like, if I would have just been like, the other day riding the horse, if I would have just been like, she has to walk this entire alleyway without stopping, without like having an issue, without any of this, and like that's what has to happen to feel like we had a successful ride. Like, what a shame, because what would have happened? I would have picked a lot of battles, probably would have made a lot of things worse, probably would have shot our confidence and shot our trust, and we would have taken 10 steps backwards. So it's not about perfection on day one. It's not about perfection on day 10 or day 30 or day 100. Like, perfection is usually not really achievable, to be honest. It's about the progress, and it's about the process, and it's about just knowing that there was an improvement today based on what was going on yesterday. And along those lines, it's about knowing what battles to pick. It's about knowing when to back off. Like, when do you apply pressure, and when do you say, all right, I'm gonna release this pressure for a minute, and we're gonna like take a break, and then we're gonna come back tomorrow, and we're gonna do a better thing tomorrow. And this is, I think, the thing that a lot of people, it's hard for people, sometimes to stay motivated and to stay in something and to stay with something, because we crave that perfection, or we crave a profound amount of progress. And because of that, we push really hard. We apply a lot of pressure. We don't do a great job of picking our battles. We kind of just want to win every single battle all the time, every single day. And we just go too hard. And progress suffers when you do that, because a lot of times you backslide. A lot of times you get frustrated. A lot of times you hinder, the journey that you're trying to be on. So, just food for thought. As you go about your life, kind of think about that. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. If you're suffering from something, if you're working on something, if you're struggling on something, if you're trying to improve something, just focus on a little bit better every day. A little bit better every day. Let's make a little progress today. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a profound breakthrough. Like, just a little progress. A little progress today, a little progress tomorrow, a little progress the next day. Don't put a crazy amount of pressure on yourself to just be over the top right out of the gate. It's okay to take baby steps. It's okay to build. It's okay to do building blocks. It's okay to be just 1% better every single day. 1% better every single day adds up to a whole lot better over the course of a year. So it's okay to take it slow. It's okay to remove the pressure when you feel like you need to remove it. It's okay to pick your battles. It's okay to focus on just little progress every single day. So that's my chat this evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't let perfection be the enemy of your progress, guys. Just things that you want. Think about this. Pressure release. Apply a little pressure. Make a little progress. Then back off. Come back and fight the fight the next day for the additional progress. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.